Yes. What's good, everybody? Welcome, Luke.
Good evening.
How are you, sir?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, just about recovered from Monday, I reckon. Yesterday was a bit of a write-off. I still managed to work somehow, although I ended up being in the wrong place first thing in the morning. But after that, mate, yeah, I had a good nap last night, and yeah, back at it today.
Yeah, you had Tuesday off, didn't you, for the journey back?
Yeah, I did, mate. Yeah, which was an absolute blessing in disguise. Because there's no way I would have been driving or traveling even anywhere on Monday evening, much like many of us, I think.
Yeah, it was needs must fun. It was a good day though, wasn't it? I do want to talk about the parade, so we might as well just get stuck straight in. Did you watch it at City Square?
Yeah, so we met at City Square, got there as early as possible. We got to Sturton Park and Ride.
Yeah.
And thought we'd get there because the buses started running from 10. Thought we'd get there nice and early. Got there for 10 o'clock, and literally the queue was about, I'm not even joking when I say half a mile long,
Right.
waiting for buses, and the buses were coming every 18 minutes. So I just rung an Uber and got into town as quick as I could. So we're in town for 10:30, I reckon. Got some beers from Sainsbury's in the station, and yeah, just pulled up a pew in City Square, and yeah, the rest just sort of happened, didn't it? You know, it was one of them days where everyone was just buzzing. Everyone, the atmosphere everywhere was great. I didn't see any trouble, but then again, I was back. I left town probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock ish, I reckon.
Still a decent effort, that though, isn't it? If you were there from what 11ish.
Yeah, about 10:30, I reckon.
Yeah,
10, 11.
Yeah,
you were still in bed, I think, weren't you?
I was, to be fair. I was surfacing probably about 11. I properly surfaced, but I was in a bit of a bad way, to be honest. It's a long weekend for me, so I don't always need the extra Monday on a bank holiday. I was feeling a bit worse for wear, but yeah, so because we didn't end up even bumping into each other, did we? Which is
no, we planned to meet up again, because we went out for something to eat the night before, didn't we?
Yeah, thank God.
Was that the Saturday? That was the Saturday. Yeah, no, that was the Sunday, wasn't it?
Sunday, wasn't it? Yeah, Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday. So we went out Sunday and then planned to meet on Monday, but yeah, it was one of them, wasn't it, mate? Everything was a bit chaotic.
Well, it's because we were around the Corn Exchange, and it were only the whole thing was going to last like an hour, wasn't it? But
yeah, no,
it left you, and then it was nowhere near us. It must have been another 2 hours before it got, because you rung me saying, right, it's gone past where all of Futterman Square, and I was like, well, and I'm thinking in 15 minutes it all passed us, but it were hours late, you know, like but I don't think they could move, could they? I think they're expecting a big crowd, but I mean, that's got to be.
I don't know how they'd estimate it, you know what I mean? Because I've seen people say 150,000, and I've seen reports of up to 300,000. I don't know. I mean, I just don't know how they'd be able to guess. But yeah, there was a lot of people there, and I think the whole parade ended up lasting sort of 3.5 hours, didn't it? Sort of ran overrun by a couple of hours, but yeah, brilliant day. One I'll never ever forget. Up there with one of the best in my life, I'd say.
Yeah, it's surprising. I knew it had been in, but I was surprised how mad it was. Because I thought when we went up in lockdown and that, you know, that obviously there no open bus or all, but just everybody piling into Millennium Square were pretty mint. That were like on a whole nother level. That one, it was absolutely wild.
It was just, and unless you were there, which I think the majority of Leeds fans were, unless you were there, you can't really explain it. Like, it was just everybody. It was almost like what it felt like was going on an away day at home times a million. Like, it just everything, but everyone was in just such good spirits and that, and you know, flares all over. I ruined my frigging Strongbow t-shirt though. I'm with a flare. I've got a couple of little cherry burns in it. Yeah, but hey, it is what it is. That's the least of my worries, to be fair. Like, I thought it was going to be a lot worse than that, but brilliant day all around, mate. I thought it was well organised. I thought, you know, the way that the bus went past and just the way everyone was buzzing, the fact that they were interacting with everybody, and you know, we've seen the videos of Ramazani catching flares and Ampadu catching the cone on his and putting it on his head. You know, just they were just as buzzing as everybody else. You know what I mean? One of the only things I'm a little bit disappointed with is I didn't hang around on Greek Street or in town to meet the players and see where the players were. That's probably my only regret of the day. But other than that, I can't knock it. Brilliant.
Yeah, I knew they'd come out, but it's hard to know where they're going to go in, and you'd have to stay on your phone to sort of find out where they walk. Because I'd only found out because I stayed out till 1 or 2 in the morning or something. But I was nowhere near them. I was up other end of town, so I don't know what time they were out till or what, but I think they were at Firpo, Bogle,
Ramazani, and Purdue.
Ramazani, yeah. They were
I think,
weren't they?
I think Paddy was out a little bit early as well because he was playing the guitar, wasn't he?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it looked like. And there's that. It's in that new Irish bar, isn't it, on Greek Street? That.
Yeah, O'Brien's, is it?
Yeah, it's been a bit. I've never been in it, like, 'cause it's quite new, but yeah.
No, I haven't. I've been told it's quite good though.
Yeah. So it would have been good to bump into them all, but yeah, it was mincing. What did you think to all FARKE stuff? Because I thought that was gonna blow up a bit. Did you see him like messing about, and then he made a bit of a gesture? Have you seen it?
Which one was that?
Well, I don't want to sort of like milk it myself, but it was just sort of like pretending to DJ. He must have seen it on thing.
Saw that, yeah.
I had to get him into a bit of bother because he sort of referenced something with his nose.
Oh yeah, I've seen that, but yeah,
not, it was just messing about. I mean,
yeah, playing about, mate. We all know that he does to partake in the odd experiment, I should imagine. Anyway, he's a proper grizzly old German boy, isn't he? The chances that he hasn't been to an Oktoberfest and partaken in some of that, I'd say are pretty slim. But the chances he hasn't, are pretty slim. So it was a bit of fun, wasn't it? And look, Robbie Fowler used to do it every week, didn't he?
Well, yeah, I mean, literally on the pitch, didn't he? I mean, he wasn't doing it on the pitch, but he was definitely making jokes about it. And Gascoigne's always made jokes about getting lashed on and stuff. So that it's just, it is what it is. Just want to mention that as well, because obviously Ampadu came into a bit of flack as well, hasn't he? What about a FA investigating that or something? Like,
yeah, to be honest, I thought when I first read the news, I thought that there was going to be that it was going to be about Willie Nonto. So I thought, oh well, he said his cock's massive, sort of thing. You know what I mean? I thought, well, we're going to upset a few people here because all the people that said that he didn't like the song and then he's singing it, he's got it on his t-shirt and all that sort of rubbish. But
Moretti in his hand as well, and
he absolutely loves it, doesn't he? All the players are it.
He knows we're all having a laugh. We're all supporting the same club, aren't we? So it'd be a weird thing to be,
Yeah, but it turns out it wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was the song about Jaden Bogle, apparently. So I didn't really get the reference, to be honest, to Starman, because I think a lot of clubs have sung it about anybody who plays on the right and been fucking dynamite. So I didn't really get it until afterwards, and I saw the uproar on and I didn't, to be honest, I didn't spend a lot of time on social media all weekend. But when I got back sort of Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, yesterday, I sort of had a little bit of look into it, and I think it's relatively harmless in it, you know what I mean? Especially when they're two Sheffield United players. I don't think that they actually have any malice in that chant, and certainly not towards somebody who's deceased. Do you know what I mean? They're not that type of lads. Do you know what I mean?
No, I can't imagine it. But again, you can't. I think when anything on the scale of what it was, when there's allegedly up to 300,000 people knocking about, there's going to be a few tales told, and a few things.
Of course.
And there's a lot of eyes on it, isn't there? There's a lot of. I mean, I didn't see any media, but there's a lot of videos floating about for media to pick up on and met what they will of it. Well, because everybody were cashing in on the fact that we had one hell of a parade.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine if we won something? If we won Premier League?
Do you know what? I fully expect it now. Now I've seen that, I fully expect us to go on and win something else now. And that's you call me deluded, call me what you like, but the fact that the city has now seen that, the city wants more, and the Leeds fans are going to want more, and the players that have taken part in that, they'll want to do all that all over again, And I'm not saying that every player that was on those buses is going to be part of us either next season or even in 2 or 3, 4 seasons time, but we have got the makings to be right up there, haven't we? You look at your Villas and Forest who are up there at the minute, and they've had some relative success recently. West Ham won the Conference League, didn't they, a season or two ago? There's no reason whatsoever that we can't be. We've just got to, I think, plan very carefully and be very, very tentative. And it almost sounds a bit of an oxymoron for me to say that we can be right up there, but we've got to plan really carefully, because we have got to plan carefully. The fact is, the prime objective over the next 2 or 3 seasons is going to be to become a stable Premier League team. And I know this is part of the title, Jack, but I think aiming for 10th is great, but I think actually the target is probably going to be 17th or above. Anywhere above 17th is for me is. And look, I'm not I'm not saying it's a defeatist attitude or anything like that, but I think the gap is growing. And we've seen that over the past 2 seasons with every 3 teams that have been promoted have gone straight back down. And I think that we've just got to be realistic. You know, we've got to finish to stay up. We've got to finish better than the 2 promoted teams and at least one team that's relatively established in the Premier League, which isn't easy to do.
I do think it's doable, though. That's why the reason why they're aiming for 10th thing. I'm being slightly jovial, but I think if we're not planning on being well inside the league, then we're just prolonging the problem, really, aren't we? I think we can hang on, and then everybody sees the Villa thing as like, you know, they're young on and now look at them type of thing. But I think if we're going up expecting 17th, I think FARKE will be out the door for a start off. So there'll be a lot of changes to happen rather than it just going, you know, like actually having a decent season and getting in and around 10th and then ending up 14th, 15th by end of season, but well away from it. Because my only thing, Luke, is everybody says like, oh, we'll look at Wolves and they've got a good side and all this stuff. Like, I've been saying it towards the end of last season with Sheffield and not Ipswich. I can't remember who else it was. Burnley. Yeah, like we're not in competition with them at this point. Like, it doesn't really matter that Wolves have got a decent side. You just have to obviously worry about our results from the first day. And if you pick up a few wins, it doesn't matter what their squad's like. You're not in competition directly with that team. Do you know what I mean? So it's the fact that Wolves can't win any games. That's what put them in problems. It's not. You can only play the league. Do you know what I mean? Just play against each team and try and pick up as many. I know it's obvious, but
yeah, no. I mean, I completely agree. I think we don't really want to be seen to be there to just take part, and I get that. You know, we've got aspirations as fans, but I think reality has to set in, Jack, for me, certainly. And I don't think it is necessarily just about wanting to aim high and just finishing 17th. I don't necessarily think it's prolonging the problem. I think the longer we're in that league, the better. And I think the better opportunity is the more opportunity we've got to actually stay and become a staple in that league. You know, I think we've got to. Well, I just think we've got to be a little bit sensible and a little bit cautious. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see us finishing 17th next season and losing the majority of our games. I don't want to see that as a fan. But I think as a realist, I think we've got to come to expect that somewhat. You know, we're going to go to teams and we're going to have some real tough days. You know, there's your Liverpools and your Cities and things, and it's not going to be enjoyable to watch. And that's why this season has been, for me, so enjoyable, because we have been that team that's won so many games and dominated so many games, and yet you still got a portion of the fan base that aren't happy with that. And I think they're going to be in for a real shock over next season, because I do truly believe that. I think we can aim higher, and I think we should be aiming higher. However, really, again, to go back to being a realist, I think we'd have to be happy with 17th, wouldn't we? I'd take 17th, but not right now. I want to do. I agree. I want to stay up in the league, but when we went up with Bielsa, nobody was saying that. This is only, what's that, 5 years ago, 4 seasons ago. Is the gulf that much bigger now that he finished 9th? And then, I mean, genuinely, how can that be the case where you can't, just because the last 6 teams that have gone up are shit, means that we're in exactly the same position? I don't think we are. I think if 49ers have got what I believe they've got about them, and they do well in summer, and FARKE has got a pragmatic way of playing, I think we can win some games. I think you've got to take into account as well how we've absolutely ripped that league apart. Not necessarily finished on the amount of points we should have done, and there's a lot of individual errors to speak for those. But actually, when you look at all the data from, I mean, I'm not a massive data fan, Jack, and you know that, but when you actually look at the data, we have been miles and miles ahead of any other team in for expected goals, and we probably should have been closer to the most clean sheets and least goals conceded as well, if it wasn't for, you know, whatever else. But the fact that we've ripped this league up, and we have ripped it up, if you know, on the face of it, that actually that shows that we have got a good foundation going up into that. We would have, that squad this season that we've played with would have finished above that bottom 3 this season, above Leicester, Ipswich, and Southampton in the Premier League. For me, I think even as a Championship team, we would have finished above any of those 3. So we have got those good foundations, but you know, a lot of it is going to come down to recruitment. And look, we've seen that FARKE has got it spot on with the types of players that he's brought in. Look, Gilavugi's come in as basically a cheerleader, but he made all the difference, didn't he? You know, with him just being in there and around the squad. Those types of players we're going to need, but on a better level. You know, anybody leaves, we're going to need to replace him. It looks like Junior Firpo might be leaving. We're going to have to replace him with somebody better. You know, that sort of thing. Links to Beto, that sort of thing. You know, it's going to be very interesting, and I think it's very harsh for me to say that I would take 17th at this stage, and I completely agree with you, because we don't know what sort of squad we're going to be going into the league with. They might absolutely throw a fortune at it, like Notts Forest did, you know, and still finish 17th, but actually 2 seasons later being in for European places. So I'm treading cautiously, Jack, with what I say, and my expectations, I think, is probably the best way of putting it. I'm sitting on the fence a little bit, which I don't tend to do, actually.
I don't think you're sitting up for. I agree with what you're saying. I do also go in there with loads of optimism. But until I get it knocked out of me, I'm having it. We're aiming for 10th, and then once it's knocked out of me after 10, 15 games, I get to go, right, we're in a bit of a dogfight here. It's a bit shit. Or we might be 10, 15 games and thinking we're basically safe, because that's my point. You can get safe pretty early on in Premier League season now, because the teams at the bottom are so poor. So as long as you know marginally better than that, I mean, Wolves they've not been good, and they're well away from it now. They're well out of it. I mean, for the teams to go down as quickly as they have done, I mean, Southampton went down the fastest it's ever been condemned on there.
Yeah, fastest ever relegation. Yeah,
I mean, that's.
I don't think they've quite finished the season yet, but they're not doing great in terms of the worst ever record. But I don't know how many points they're on. Derby was the worst ever. One of them.
Yeah, that was bad.
Was it 11 or 12 points or something like that?
It's a bad season, wasn't
it? But they're not much better than that. Do you know what I mean? If at all. Let's just have a quick look. Where are they? Southampton are on 11 points. Yeah, so they could. I think Derby are the worst ever on 12, so they could actually be going down in the worst ever. Derby worst Premier League season. Just bear with me. I'm pretty sure it was 11 or 12.
I remember that season. They were obviously, I think they won 1 game or something, didn't they?
11 points. It was 11 points, so they could equal it.
Yeah,
they could equal it.
That's what I mean, though. So the gulf varies on. Basically what I'm saying is I think the bottom 2 teams are going to be that bad, whoever it is, whether it's
Yeah, and I don't expect us to be one of those, Jack. I don't, and I'm completely with you on that. I think we've got the stability now. You know, Rad's took us up. He had an opportunity. Under Marcelo to really build something, but he didn't want to throw the money at it. You know, he didn't want to risk that money, unfortunately, for us. But I do think these guys have got a bit more about them than Rads and co. So I'm excited. I am excited. And it's always exciting to see what sort of players we're going to be getting. We've seen a timeline now for the work on Ellen Road as well, which is due to be completed, I think, fully by the end of 2029. But yeah, it's an exciting time to be a Leeds fan. And if you can't enjoy these moments, you know, you're never going to really enjoy ever being a Leeds fan, I don't think, because the days of being in the Champions League and the days of winning First Division titles a long time ago now, and for those to come back, we're probably quite a long way away from that as well. But I can see us winning a League Cup, or you know, over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, I could see us winning, getting into the you know, was it Europa Nations or whatever it's called? Not the Europa Nations. What's the one outside the Conference League? That's it. Yeah, Europa Conference League. Something like that, you know, that is a good target for me, to win a cup, or even if it's for the league or an FA Cup, or to get into Europe through that door. But I just don't think. I think we just need to be a little bit realistic and set realistic expectations, and not get ahead of ourselves, and not sort of throw the baby out the bathwater if we don't win our first 5 games. You know what I mean? To start panicking and that sort of stuff, because we've seen what FARKE can do, and people will argue that he's not the right man for the job because of his prior goals in the Premier League, which are essentially it's unfair to judge him on those, if you ask me, just because of the team he went up with and the investment that he was given. We'll see what he's made of now. You know, we've gone up early. We don't have to go through the playoffs. Recruitment looks like it's potentially already starting, and it is a really exciting time because who knows who we could be welcoming through those doors over the next couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, Parag's that came out, didn't he? But I thought Parag's interview on Bus were pretty mint, to be fair, when he was swearing and that. I thought it was quite.
Yeah.
I mean, he were, because he must, I know they don't know where they are, do they really, when it comes to Leeds? But when you get on a bus like that and go around, you must think, it just even on your own behalf. I know there's money flying about for them, and that's all they're really there for. But to think, wow, this does have serious scope to be, because he said, he wants to be one of the best teams in Europe, doesn't he? And we can do that. It can be done. It's going to take time, but I do believe the 49ers and people like Parag can actually, if anybody can, get it done. I mean, like you say, Rads didn't, whether or not he wouldn't throw the money or whether he didn't have it or whether he were shitting his pants about it or like people say, risked it with Bielsa. Bielsa would keep him up that season and stuff without much investment, because the 9th, he's probably didn't help Bielsa out. Probably thought, well, a couple of new
players.
Yeah, and that he'll be all right with it, and obviously we wasn't. It was awful. So, but yeah, I do. Do you trust in the 49ers overall? What they'll do?
Yeah, do you know what the funny thing is? Right, I did a podcast a few years back when Rads was in charge, because I thought Rads was a decent owner at the time, and it got us promoted back to the promised land, and I know Bielsa did the majority of the work, but they brought Bielsa in, and there was talk around the 49ers then. And I pretty much slated them because of the old American, the American ownership hasn't really worked anywhere, certainly in the Premier League. And I was a bit concerned about us becoming a banter club, shall we say, and selling popcorn in the South Stand and walking around with bloody hot dogs at half time and that sort of shit. And I just took the Americanisms out in it, and I think I was pretty unfair, in honesty. Now we've had a season or two under their sort of ownership. I do take it all back, and I admit I was wrong, because they've got what's their interests at heart, because they've invested a lot of money into the club. But ultimately, that money's worth far more to them the better we do. And I think if we look at it from a Brighton or a Brentford or even a Bournemouth perspective, and we can go on the same trend of improvement, but with the size of the club that we are, there is absolutely no reason why we couldn't be in the European places in a few years' time, Jack. I think you look at the size of those clubs and what they've got going for them. If we can really crack the recruitment and the ownership and are as committed as their owners are, the size of the club and what the not just the fan base, but the draw that we'd have as a club if we were a stable Premier League side, and not just necessarily for coaching staff, but the players as well. We the sky's our limit. World's our oyster. We've got so much going for us, and it was very, very clever of the 49ers to recognise that. And we've been, how many times have we been called the sleeping giant that's been living in the Championship? So I am really excited. I have to admit, I'm going to take a couple of months, though, probably at least 6 weeks, just to not even think about football. I'm not going to do any podcasts or anything like that. I quite enjoy the downtime. I'm sure the lads will still do some stuff, but I'll probably stay up to date with transfers and stuff, but I'm not getting involved in these online spats and that, because ultimately, as we've seen this season, I'm always right.
Oh, yeah,
I'm not really. What I mean is, it doesn't matter what I say or what I do online, because the club will do whatever they want to do, and they'll do what they think is best for the club.
Yeah, and for me, because everybody's banging on about how much they spend and stuff, and I've said this a few times, but they can spend 10 million or 200 million. I don't care. It's about having a decent window, isn't it? I mean, for instance, this Beto, which you mentioned earlier from Everton, he's already been lampooned, hasn't he? On
Absolutely
Twitter.
has, yeah.
I couldn't read it. I was so buzzing, that we'd just been linked with. It's on Sky Sports. It's a legitimate thing. They're talking about Richarlison, they're potentially going back to Everton, so that there's an in there to some extent. And he's got 7 goals this season, that lad, and Everton haven't been great. And if he's perfect for my man FARKE, it's a good addition.
To put things in perspective, Jack, he's got 7 goals in just over 1,000 minutes in the Premier League.
Yeah.
The other option we've currently got at the minute is Matteo Joseph, who got 3 league goals in more minutes in the Championship.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
We've got to be careful what we wish for. Do you know? I think we've got to be really, really sensible. Beto wouldn't be a marquee signing. People aren't going to hit the roof and say, oh, he's great. And you're going to get your online tacticals who say he can't do this and he can't do that. But if he wants to play for Leeds United and the coaching staff and FARKE say he's the man I want, who are we to suggest that he's not good enough to play for Leeds United?
Yeah, I mean, he's a Premier League footballer, isn't he? If you're getting 7 goals for a shit team like Everton, you know, if you that's what I'm saying. If you're playing decent stuff, and if we can, you know, he's quite he seems like a big lad, doesn't he, and stuff. I don't even. There's no point dissecting his game. He plays for Everton Football Club. I don't know who or what people expect us to go out and sign. If the frustrating thing is, if it were Beto from, I don't know where he was before Everton, but if he's coming from Spain or Italy or something, everybody'd be all over it. But because he plays for Everton and he's got a few goals, it's like they think they know a bit more about him. I don't know. It's just like you can find players that, you know, he might come in and do a proper solid job for us. I mean, look at like Chris Wood and stuff, who's, you know, he played it with us in the Championship and he is the West Coast warlord, isn't he, for Notts Forest this year?
Yeah.
So
been
him back now, wouldn't you? If he was,
and he's 30, he must be 36, 37 years old now.
This lad's getting lambasted for being 27.
I know.
He's literally in the prime of his life.
Yeah, it's mad. It is mad, and this is part of the reason I'm going to stay away from Leeds United social media, because I just can't deal with the negativity. The positivity should be through the roof right now. You know, we've just been promoted in a record-breaking season. We've broken so many records. We've finished first pretty much on every measurable, other than clean sheets and goals conceded, and everything else we've been top. You know, we've just had a parade that's you know, brought tears to people's eyes. It's brought memories. It's brought people back to the city. People who probably haven't had a lot to do with Leeds over the years have probably gone and enjoyed the day. And we just need to carry on riding that wave, because for me, it's, you know, it's really, really important that we don't start, because once you start reading this negative shit, it just drains you, mate. It just absolutely zips the life out of me. And then I spend half a day fucking arguing with these people about pretty much about what you've just said. Who are we to judge? What, you know, why this player, he's not even our player yet, and people are saying he's not good enough to be our player. Like, you know what I mean? There's loads of players coming out of contract this season, and we should be talking to a lot of them. But then you'll have people saying they're out of contract for a reason. Well, yeah, they're out of contract for a reason, because the club can't afford to, either renew their contract, or they don't want to stay at that club, or they've not signed their renewal, and they're in the market. So there are players that are going to become available that people will lambast simply because they're a free agent, when actually they will be an absolute great fit. Max Aarons is one. Max Aarons is a free agent this summer.
Players run the contract down, don't they? Players aren't happy where they're at and stuff, and they can't, you know, they may be aware that they can't get much of not many buyers in terms of, like, because the club probably value him at, just to make up a figure, but 10 million. And that limits the opportunity for how many teams that want to pay 10 million for him. But if he's going out for free, there'd be loads of teams go, oh, we'll snap him up. Do you know what I mean? And then suddenly he's got loads of options. It's not, being out of contract doesn't mean anything, does it? Let's have it right.
No. And I fully trust and expect the recruitment team to do exactly that. And the comment there just sort of highlights that not every player has to be bought for 40 or 50 million quid to be a success. You know, I fully expect Tanaka to be starting for us in the Premier League next season. He's been that good for us, and he cost us 3 million quid.
And he was in the second tier in Germany, which some people would say was a shit league, you know, in the grand scheme of things in terms of competitiveness. That's what I'm saying about, you know, you can pick up gems all over the shop. Rafinha was literally on for Ballon d'Or. You know, how much did we even buy him for? 17 million. Yeah, I mean that's
pennies.
It's crazy, and you deem it as a bit of a risk, really. 17 million when, you know, I didn't know who he was. So it was like, you know, he's got a mint name and he's Brazilian, and you know, it's exciting. But you know, if it had ended up being shit, it wouldn't have surprised me either. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, when I was a kid, I'll tell you a story now. I don't know if I've told you before, actually. When I was a kid, really young. I was like infant school, probably year 4 or 5, and I'm a massive Leeds fan. And all my family friends and that were all Leeds fans. And they told me we'd signed a Brazilian striker called Wellard. So I went into school and told all my mates I would sign this fantastic Brazilian striker called Wellard only to be ridiculed by some of the kids because they knew that their mum watched EastEnders, and it apparently was a dog off EastEnders at the time. But I thought it was great that we'd signed this Brazilian striker called Wellard. But anyway, it is what it is.
Well, where Ridsdale went on, it wouldn't surprise me if they had a dog that were worth, 30-odd million anyway. So if all goldfish things were true and that, which was a wild time to be alive, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think about Ridsdale time? Not to go off on too much of a tangent, but
I mean, obviously we enjoyed it, didn't we? We enjoyed it. It was almost a big dipper, wasn't it? We went up and we got gambled on becoming, Champions League regulars, and unfortunately didn't pay off. Then I had to
didn't realise it was that much of a gamble.
No, well, I mean, nobody did at that time. No. There was no social media.
No,
there was none of that, so you couldn't have conversation. You couldn't. Very rarely would you look at club finances and stuff like that. You wouldn't have people online dissecting the finances.
It wasn't even in media though, were it? Nobody was even saying, where's this money coming from? This is quite risky. It was just, because the only thing that Ridsdale really, apart from collapsing the club by being, naive, really, he said in his interview, didn't he? He says, that we lived the dream. And that's always pissed me off, because I always thought, well, no, I didn't know. I mean, it was a dream to me now, but I didn't know we were living a dream. Do you know what I mean? I thought
reality.
I thought that was
the norm. Yeah.
I thought we were being sensible, and I know we're buying players and stuff, but I thought, well, we're a big club and we're going for it. And didn't think if we didn't make Champions League, it's the world's going to end for Leeds United for the next 20 years.
No,
that dream. It's living a nightmare.
No, it is, yeah. And I think, look, in hindsight, it's very easy to say now because we spent so long out of the top flight on the back of it. But we enjoyed some real good times watching some real good footballers and some real good European moments. Do you know what I mean? And if we had have made that payoff and continue, we would ultimately probably be, up there with your Arsenals, your Liverpools, your Scums, and your Cities right now, and probably never left the Premier League. But unfortunately, gambles don't always play off, Jack, as we know. So here we are telling the tale and buzzing to be back in the Premier League. That is first and foremost why we should be absolutely, buzzing our tits off, because we've spent 3 years out of the last 20 in the top flight. 3 years. This is going to be our 4th year, and it's if you can't enjoy these moments, when are you ever going to enjoy it? You know what I mean? Because you're certainly not going to enjoy next season, because we're not going to be winning the league by a massive margin. Although I will have a bet on us winning the league. I'm asking Ridsdale to lend me a tenner, but yeah, we are going to get beat far more often next season, so it's going to be far less enjoyable. But we're playing at the top level, and we're going to have some better footballers to watch, and hopefully it'll pay off. And I'm confident we will stay up, and I think this time is very, very different.
Yeah, I think we're in a good space. It kind of makes it worth it, that the Monday parade and the way we went up, on the not went up, but on the last day, won it, because a bit of jeopardy made it involved in it and stuff. And I didn't really want. I mean, I were saying it for weeks. I did not want Burnley winning the league. I really wanted to win the league, even once we confirmed we were going up. And then I think everybody realised how much it actually meant to go and get it won, really, because that parade I do think would have been halved had we gone up second. Because I know people are taking piss out of Burnley's, but I'd have had slightly less. I'd have gone, but I'd have had slightly less beans in my juices. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't think. I wouldn't have been as. I wouldn't have been. I don't think I would. It'd have been well, we're going up and we need to go up, and it'd have been a bit more
No, you're probably right. Yeah.
I mean, how everybody went on in pub when Solomon scored, it definitely seemed to me, and then watching Joe's reaction and stuff on his live, it seemed to me like he wanted to win the league in that last minute.
I mean, we all did, didn't I? I know I said I'm not bothered, which I wasn't, because ultimately the goal was to get back in the Premier League, but we all want to win the league and bragging rights, and we've got another trophy and an honour on our list. And yeah, I think just the celebrations of the Solomon goal tell the full story, don't they? So,
do you not think we'd have been chuckled at though, Luke, had we gone up second and then 300,000 people turned up and started ripping Middle at City up, and that just literally?
Yeah, probably. But even who cares? Who cares? We don't care. People ridicule us no matter what we do. So who gives one?
Well, yeah, but I wanted it and we got it. So, and I'm happy with how we went up. I thought it would mint Solomon at last minute. It was good for Solomon. What do you think Solomon wise? There's a lot of toing and froing on it now, isn't there? Whether or not he's going to sign.
Yeah, I think if it's a deal that can be done, we probably will. As long as Levy doesn't try have our pants down because he's had a good season. You know, that's the type of guy he is. He's going to say, look, stayed injury free the majority of the season. He's probably over the worst of it. He's probably worth, he might say 25 million, but I mean, I don't think he's worth 25 million. But if it's a deal that can be done and we think it's cost effective, then get it done. You know, he knows the lads. He's enjoyed his time here. Social media posts have made me a little bit wary because it looks like he's almost saying goodbye. But he might be. But that might be a conversation for in a few months' time. There's almost two transfer periods now, isn't there? There's the PSR transfer period, which is up to the 30th of June, and then the normal sort of window into the next session of PSR opens then. So we might not have that much money in this particular window. It might not be a conversation we can have until the end of June. Who knows? But I for one would certainly welcome him back with open arms.
We seem to have a pretty decent relationship with Levy, though. I know he likes to drain every drip he can out of stuff, doesn't he? But we do seem to have a decent relationship with Spurs, like not just the grey thing, but even when we were borrowing when our pitch were rancid and we were borrowing pitch and stuff, we do seem to have a long
Joe Rodon as well.
Rodon, yeah. And we loaned Spence. I know that didn't work out, but I think I think there's something there. And I do think clubs have relationships nowadays. I think it's changed significantly where, until you're an absolute out and out rival, because we're not rivals with Tottenham right now, are we?
No.
But, although I don't know, even if you were, would they still have it? It's just business, isn't it? End of the day, if it works for both teams, it works for both teams, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think it sounds like it. I mean, on paper, it should be an easy deal to be done. He knows the lads. We know what he can do with us. They seem as surplus, arguably, and I don't know what they paid for him. I'll be honest. I have to be brutally honest. I don't know what they paid for him when they signed him. But if we can do it, then get him brought in, because it's almost if we sign him, that's the wingers sorted. And providing there's not a lot of interest in Nonto, Ramazani or Dan James, I would argue that those four wingers will be good enough for us in the Premier League with enough backup for us to hit our benchmarks. That's that done then. You don't have to worry about it. Do you know what I mean? Then we should start putting the other pieces of the jigsaw together in preparation for the season. He knows the style of play that FARKE wants. It just seems so effortless to do, which probably means we won't get it done.
No. Yeah, but like you say, look, he's been there in the Prem himself as well, hasn't he? And he's wanting to prove himself as a Prem player. So it's his opportunity to wear, and he knows he's going to get plenty of game time, because ultimately he's been picked from the first day of the season, hasn't he, to the last day of the season. He's very rare. I don't think he's been dropped. I know he's been out of a few games, but that were all due to injuries and stuff. So FARKE took him very serious from the first kick of the season, didn't he? I was surprised to see him start really right at the very beginning. Apart from knowing that how much of a quality player he is, but I think our wingers, because people are saying that potentially need more. I think our wingers will be better in the Premier League. I genuinely do. There's going to be less of a. I think Nonto will exceed himself in Prem. I think he plays well. I think he plays well at that level. I think it's a totally different game. I think he'll have to carry the ball a little bit more from deeper and stuff, and just gain us a little bit of time every now and again. We're going to need them to really take sting out of games, aren't we? Because you can go flying into challenges or whatever, but sometimes you need to calm the game down by giving it to somebody technically very good on the ball who's not going to just waste it and lose it.
Yeah. I think the recruitment is going to be so important. But I think you're quite right in that Solomon, Dan James, Nonto, and Ramazani have got by far enough quality. I think the only thing that might
as well, Luke. I think
the only thing that might concern me slightly about those four is defensively, and we are going to be doing a lot more defending. They're going to have to work a lot harder because they've had it their own. I don't want to say their own way, because they've created that. We've made it that they've got it their own way, but it's not necessarily their own way. It's just the fact that we've been so dominant that all they've had to do really in the majority of the season is attack. Everybody likes attacking. if you're an attacker. You know, they probably don't like defending as much. We just might need to see a different side to all of them, actually. Dan James arguably probably does his fair share.
Yeah.
The other three probably less so, I would say. So it'd be nice. Look, we don't know. They might be really good at defending and work really hard. We just don't know. But they'll certainly be expected to win in league games next season.
Yeah, they'll have to. And that's kind of what I'm saying with Nonto. He's been there in Prem and he worked his nuts off. I don't think anybody can. I know people have had a bit of a go at Nonto at times this year, but he does work hard. He does get about. He does throw his weight about a bit. You know, he's a problem even when we've not got the ball. So, you know, I'm fine with wingers. I agree if we bring Solomon in. Yeah. Number 10 definitely needed, isn't it? Without 100%. A doubt. I think Aronson, you know, as much stick as I'll get for saying it, I think Aronson will do a good job for us in and around the squad. I don't think there's any need to have any knee-jerk reaction. I don't want to have any knee-jerk reaction with any of them, to be honest. I don't think we desperately need to get any of them out of it. I've never understood this thing anywhere where it's like, get out the club as quickly as possible. Like, as soon as Aronson's gone, we'll be all right suddenly. It's like, no, there'll be a huge void. And then if the 10 we don't bring in, if he ends up being shit, we're stuck, aren't we? Because Aronson's all right, isn't he? And
Aronson will offer something that almost no other 10 will offer in the Premier League. You know, he doesn't. He's not going to pop up and change a game necessarily in what he does with the ball at his feet. But what he might do is change a game with the ball out of his feet. We saw that at Chelsea, where, you know, but again, when we beat him 3-0 first day of the season.
Yeah, when it looked like it was good.
And he was pressing the goalkeeper, and he got that first goal, didn't he? That's Aronson's game. And when he's got no legs, he's going to be a shit footballer. I'll give him that. You know, when his legs go and he can't press and he can't run around all day, he's going to be pretty much useless footballer. But whilst he can do that, Jack, I completely agree. And it's something that no other team really thinks about, and no other team necessarily has. Certainly the Premier League, they've all got your Kevin De Bruyne's and you know, players that can unlock a defense and you know, pull players around the pitch and
you a new one basically.
Yeah. Which is something else that we'll need, and we will need that. But I agree, keep Aronson around the place isn't going to be the worst thing in the world.
What do you think to Byram? Because Voldemort were on about Byram the other day, just saying, you know, like, because the chant were going around, wasn't it, saying give him 2 more years and stuff, and you know, and apparently people were looking around at this. I mean, I don't believe that for a second.
Who's Voldemort?
Well, Voldemort's Voldemort, but just the Voldemorts of the world. You know,
all right.
Yeah. Does it matter if Byram's there for an extra year? Will Byram, if he doesn't touch the football pitch, does it really matter if he plays odd cup game? Why do you give a shit?
I think it's back up. He's never going to be starting. Realistically, he's back up, and he's experienced. He loves Leeds. And we made this mistake once before, didn't we? When we started offloading your Berardis and Alioskis and you know, your natural players that love the club and have been there and done it with the club. You almost do need to keep 1 or 2 of those around, Jack. Not just because they're great footballers necessarily, but you do need to keep that camaraderie and that you know, that level of not necessarily companionship, chemistry, I think probably is the better word, in and around the spot.
And people that know the roles, Luke. So Byram knows what he is at the club, doesn't he? So we're not signing someone to sort of replace Byram that ends up being, like Joe Depp just said, the 3rd choice right or left back. Nobody's going to be happy doing that. But if you've got Byram, who's a proper decent lad, it were Ampadu starting that chant, so they all obviously like him. Byram would go, well, I'll have a year in Prem. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'd quite like to see how we get on. We'll probably end up using him a little bit more than you'd hope. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and you know, there'll be a couple of games where you think we've actually done all right there with Byram. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he's going to come in and let you down, make you look a tit or all. So, you know, if you need him for 15 minutes every 4 weeks, I just can't see why that's a problem. Like, he's a proper...
Yeah, completely agree, mate. And as a 3rd choice, he's not going to be on mega money. You know, he's not going to be on loads and loads of money. And you know exactly what you're going to get with Sam Byram. Maybe, hold him, keep him there for the next year. I wouldn't mind that at all.
Yeah. What position other than the 10 do you think we really need strengthening in?
So depending on what happens with Junior Firpo, I think left back is key. I would like to see Junior stick around. Because I think he's had a fantastic season. Even if he does stick around, I still think we need another left back, somebody who can defend. I'm not saying Junior's the worst defender in the world because I think he's really improved, but we've seen him in the Premier League at this level before when he's up against your Mo Salahs of the world and that, and it does become difficult for Junior. So somebody who is more natural left back in terms of the defensive rather than somebody who gets forward a lot, I would like to see. And then the other one is a centre back, somebody to complement Joe Rodon. Pascal Strike's injury record worries me. And honestly, I don't know if he's at the level that Joe Rodon is. So somebody as good as Joe Rodon to play left centre back as well.
Yeah, I think we need a centre back for a bit of stability. I would also say I genuinely would get if there's a centre mid floating about who's a big, tough, solid Premier League centre midfielder. I would honestly
Thomas Souček.
Yeah, genuinely that type of thing. Yeah, I mean, me and Lockie were saying other week. You know, I mean, obviously McTominay's gone on to bigger things now, but if you could pick up players like that, I mean, McTominay is well away from anybody would be able to achieve, but you know, like you say, Souček, Sean Longstaff, like players like that, we got linked to him that when we were going to go up, and I got literally taken piss out of for saying Longstaff. I think that'd be mint. Proper. I mean, he's ended up in a Champions League squad. Do you know what I mean? He's proper decent centre midfielder.
Doing really well as well.
Yeah, we need to know where we're at with players. And if we can pick up anything like that, I mean, Souček's he went through a patch, him and Rice, well, he was the one actually getting forward and Rice was the one sitting. And I know Rice is a better footballer than Souček, but there's definitely, some.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind as a proper seasoned centre midfielder. Also the other position is goalkeeper.
Yeah,
we haven't mentioned. You know, they're not necessarily footballers though. If we're talking about who should be winning Ballon d'Ors and
it depends who you're talking to, doesn't it?
Players of the seasons and stuff. But I'd like to see us sign a really good goalkeeper. Names that are going to be thrown out there here: Aaron Ramsdale's that's just been relegated. Potentially Cooper if he doesn't go up with Sheffield United. You know, those sort of level goalkeepers I think would suit us. Even this lad from Stoke who we passed on last time, Johansson, wouldn't be a bad shout, I don't think. But yeah, we'd certainly need to improve in that area next season for me.
Do you think Mez gets moved on? And if so, what do you think we do with Darlow?
I don't know. I think probably Meslier goes back and plays on the continent and because finds his. I think he potentially needs that for himself, and we need that as well. You know, if we could pick up a decent fee for him because he's still really really young, and he has got the attributes to be a good goalkeeper. His confidence is just shot in it. You know, we've seen when he's confident, he's a great goalkeeper, and look, he might go to Monaco or Marseille or somebody like that as a backup and get some game time and become, their number one in the future. But I don't think he's right for us anymore. I think the fact that he had to be dropped and that was sort of the lower common denominator with us, our form improvement proven as well. We sort of needed it. Players sort of lost confidence in him as well, I think, certainly Joe Rodon. But so, yeah, I think that's a smart move for everybody if Meslier can find somewhere to go on the continent. Darlow then stays as number 2, I should imagine.
Do you reckon Darlow's up for that though?
Yeah, it came as number 2. It came as number 2 anyway, didn't it?
I don't know because initially everybody was saying that Mez were on way out, weren't they? And then we got Darlow in, and it were a bit like Mez is probably going to get moved on, and then it never really happened. So I don't know whether Darlow's actually been a bit pissed that he's been second fiddle anyway, and then he's ended up coming in and being like the man towards the end of the season. But it'd be interesting. I really don't want to go down a thing where we have to get 2 keepers in, though. That is for sure. That is a mess, isn't it? That.
Yeah.
If you need a number 1 and a number 2, I mean, friggin' hell.
Yeah, and it's it's just making the recruitment a whole lot tougher because you don't want to be spending your time going and trying to bring 2 goalkeepers in. Although it's a key area of the field and you need a good number 1 and a backup of a decent level, I think he's been every bit good enough as Darlow to show he can be number 2 in the Premier League, if not pushing number 1.
Yeah, I mean,
I would like a proper number 1, an actual, an improvement on both of those quite comfortably on Meslier and Darlow as our number 1 though.
Yeah. Do you think we'll spend huge on any individual? And by huge, well, what? Well, no, I'll ask you. What do you deem big spend? On an individual.
I think for us, a 30 million signing is a big spend.
Yeah, I think that's a big spend. Yeah,
I think we will. I think we'll bring one or two big signings around 25, 30 mil. I do.
Yeah. That scares me a bit. That
scares you.
It does a little bit. Yeah, I think when they come with big price tag, I think it's
the expectations there all of a sudden, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look at Rodrigo. When we brought Rodrigo in, and he had his first season, he was dog shit for us, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, nobody likes hearing that for some reason, Luke, but he was, wasn't he? So
yeah,
and I was so excited, and I backed him all the way to end. But really, for the money we spent on Rodrigo, we didn't get a great deal out of him, did we?
No, and he was a Spanish number 9 at the time.
Yeah,
he was starting for Spain up front.
Yeah,
but that also almost what makes me think though, Jack. If we recruit like that, then what's to say we can't be aiming for those levels? I mean, I know we don't want to bring Rodrigo or a Llorente or a Koch back in. One would hope that we'd done our due diligence this time on players and the style of play that complements the Premier League type of, or certainly the football FARKE is hoping to play. But yeah, we just brought those in simply because they were Spanish internationals or German internationals and hope that it'd click, and it just didn't work, did it? And for whatever reason, well, probably because they used a dartboard to decide who they were going to go after back then. But
I think there's a little bit of luck involved as well, though, Luke. Like, I mean, for the first few weeks, I thought Koch were a decent player, and I still think he is. Do you know what I mean? I mean, he's apparently getting on all right, isn't he? So, and Llorente, had he not been so injury prone, I do actually think he's a proper decent player. I mean, he's some balls I saw him play early doors, and like I actually backed him 1-on-1 for the majority, and then after about 2 months, he was just done. He were gone. I mean, when he were coming on and they were starting games, Bielsa were desperate to start him, and he got through that. I think it was Newcastle, and they played about 45 seconds, and they were like, "Oh my god," like he's clearly done. But there's definitely, I don't know, players can find themselves in situations, can't they? And I think a lot of them just threw towel in, to be honest. So
yeah, and I agreed. Yeah, I agree. I think, and you're spot on about luck. You look at Veron when he came to the Premier League and the price tag that was on his head and the expectation, and the bluffs happen. Unfortunately, some players can't take to it, and they don't work with the teammates or the style of football that a manager's aiming to play. Forlan was crap in the Premier League. Yeah,
there's no denying how mint he was for years and years and years.
Yeah, cut it up.
He were about 50. I mean, he's like his longevity were outrageous.
Yeah, so there is an element of luck as well, but we just didn't seem to get lucky with any of them at the time, did we? Other than Raf, I don't suppose.
He were always bound to go on and do on that curve, wasn't he, I suppose.
Yeah. What's your thoughts, Jack, on bringing back ex-players? So Calvin's or I don't know, even Milner's, that sort of thing. Do you think that's a bridge we shouldn't be crossing?
I was going to ask you about that, but since you've asked me, it totally depends, Luke, on if Pogba, for instance, to bring Pogba back. Not that Pogba's ever been here, but if players like Milner are an addition to like, if I think we've had a really good window and then it's Milner's in as well, I'd be bang up for it. Like, why not? Milner's no clown, is he? He'd probably be, and everywhere he's gone, they've continued to win. I mean, once he left Man City, he must have thought he were on the decline, and he's ended up going on and winning everything with pretty much everybody. And he does feature a lot for Brighton, and I know he's very old. Is he 39 now or something?
Oh, it must be 30. Yeah, he's knocking on. I mean, for me, I just don't know. I don't know about
not even to just have him round club. If we're on about Gilavogi and stuff, the standards that Milner had set, and he's quite versatile. Again, like to have him on bench 15 minutes every couple of weeks, 20 minutes when you desperately need him, and if we try to grind a result out rather than going defensive and stuff, you just bring James Milner on at centre midfield for 15 minutes. He's definitely got that in him. He's
40 in January.
Yeah, I mean, it's old for a footballer.
But he's kept healthy good Nick. You know, he was always winning
Oh, it's
bleep.
unbelievable, yeah.
You know, he's so fit and that, and he doesn't break down. I don't ever remember him being injured for long.
No, well, ironically, though, just this year, innit, he's been a bit injured,
Yeah.
which is, you know, typical.
Yeah. So I mean,
I've gone off the Phillips idea. If I'm honest, when I was getting giddy about us going up, I thought, well, I was like, ooh, because I was like, yeah, why not? You know, like this is exciting, but I'm less so on board with that. But again, if we sign a couple of decent players and then Phillips is just a nice addition that we're bringing on loan or something, or you know, and he's just around place, it's got to be a good player to have on bench and try find some form. And it's just what it is if we're desperate on them. You know, if we line up first game of the season and Bamford's number 9, Milner's at left back because we can't find a replacement for Firpo, and Calvin Phillips is in holding midfield role because Ampadu's had to go into centre midfield to centre back because Struick's injured. Yeah. I'm shitting my pants about the year we're about to have. Do you know what I mean? But if Milner's on bench or Phillips is on bench or something, and we've got another centre midfielder there, and we're Ampadu and we're Tanaka solid in there. And, you know, you see Phillips every couple of weeks at Ellen Road. I'll be up for that. Do you know what I mean? It really does depend on how we go with stuff. So.
Yeah, and like you say, I don't think we wouldn't have the funds available to bring him back to the club simply because of his salary, and I expect City would want a decent wedge of money back for him. But like you say, if we could bring him in on a loan, let him find his feet again, because I truly believe if he was back here, we'll be playing much better than if he was at Ipswich or if he was at City or whatever. You know, that is that type of player. But I sort of tend to agree a little bit with Clem Fandango, Sentimental United, that cost us the last time in the Premier League. And I think that's pretty harsh. I don't think it was sentiment that cost us in the Premier League, because by that time it was you know, people like Jack Harrison and Lorente and Koch and those types of players that we had there. It wasn't necessarily sentiment, but people will mention Liam Cooper and Luke Ayling, but what do you do? Do you know what I mean? I don't think it was sentiment that got us relegated last time. I think it was just shit football. And unfortunately, Bielsa was the reason I think we got relegated was Bielsa was left with next to nothing. Again, you know, in terms of playing personnel, he was sacked, brought in Jesse Marsh. We had some easier fixtures. Players came back from injury. He kept us up, and then we thought he was the saviour. And it didn't work out. So, but yeah, I don't tend to believe, but I do agree with what he said about the sentiment element of it. I think you know, we need to be ruthless as a business. It's a business now, and if we want to see Leeds survive and, you know, stay at that level, we need to probably be looking past a bit of sentiment. But having said that, I've just said in the last breath that Calvin would play his best football at Leeds United. So if we could bring him in on a loan, a deal that worked, I would absolutely. We've seen how good he can be. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's kind of my, you know, as much as because everybody thinks I'm sentimental, which is fine. I'm also happy to be a sentimental fan. I'll take it. You know, I don't really care even if I am. But I think if you just look at the individual as it actually is, you know, like what you can attract when you're coming up into Premier League. And ultimately, you know, Ipswich took him, didn't they? And I know they've been shit and they've gone down. They didn't particularly perform very well for him. But
well,
you know,
just really quickly,
my mates didn't sign him on sentimental value, did they?
No, and a lot of my mates are Ipswich fans down here, and they said he was good for them, but he just came to them not fit. So if we can get him here fit and get him really fit before the season starts, because he didn't start getting fit until the end of the season, and they said he put some good performances for him. But yeah, they didn't sign him on sentiment; they signed him on his ability, didn't they? And we've all seen how good like I said, how good he can be.
Yeah, I mean, somebody Richard Todd put Jordan Henderson available on a free, which I didn't know was available on a free. But I mean, we won't be able to get Jordan Henderson. But to say that he'd just be in the squad is mad to me. Jordan Henderson would be an outrageous signing, wouldn't it? Let's have it right.
He'd be starting for us, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he'd have to. So this is kind of what I mean, though. It's like, you know, the scope's out there, isn't it? I'm saying, you know, bring somebody like Phillips back and maybe sit him on bench until he can get fit, until we can use. I don't even particularly care. I don't even want Phillips back. I'm no longer an advocate for it. I just got excited one week. But Jordan Henderson, it'd been a maniac to me to not want that in the club. It's just for setting standards as well. These lads are no joke. That's what I'm saying about Milner. It's not a sentimental thing. He didn't really do all for Leeds, did he? He just started his career here and then he pissed off. When
Scored the youngest ever goal scorer in the Premier League, though, still, is he?
that was against Chelsea, wasn't it? That I think.
Yeah.
It were
Didn't he beat Rooney's record by a week or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, they were quite close together as well, weren't they? Which is mad to think that Rooney's was retired for like 10 years, doesn't it? And
Rooney looks like he's been playing darts in his local for the last 20 years, and Milner's still playing professional football.
And, he was always a bit way out though, wasn't he? To be fair, I think I don't know. I think he loves it. Ena says Henderson's been awful for 3 years, but I mean they loved him initially at Ajax, and he was good at Liverpool. I don't know. I don't want Henderson either. I'm just saying if he's example, it's
yeah, I understood. Yeah, I get that.
Eggs is eggs. But yes, Luke, you said you won't be going live much, but Orta No Meta are still doing podcasts.
Yeah, we'll still do the odd bits through the summer and that. But I mean, I'm on about sort of in terms of online debates, shall we say, through social media. I'm not getting into it through the next 6 to 8 weeks. I'm just going to let que sera, do you know what I mean? What will be the club. It's in the club's hands. They've got us this far. Who are we to judge if they're going to do anything else? You know, if they haven't done a lot wrong so far is probably the best way of putting it, I suppose. And my trust is fully in them at the moment. Yeah,
I agree. I'm excited about going up. We just got to enjoy this summer because we're going to be doing all sorts. There's going to be players floating around, you know, all sorts of when we get linked, absolutely all sorts out. We just ride it out.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get some business done pretty quick, which I think they'll be, I think they're already, like you say, at work doing so. And just try and enjoy the ride a bit and have a mint opening day at season. Because I do think that sets you up pretty well if you come out flying. When we played Liverpool, when we went up with Bielsa, that held us together for quite a while, I felt.
Yeah, agreed. And just beat Scum once, man, this season.
Yeah, it'd be mint, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't wait for that fixture. I can't wait for fixtures to come out, stuff like that, when you're planning around your
new shirts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it is an exciting time. It's an exciting time to be a Leeds fan, and we're back in the big time. So, and if we have to ride it out, like you're saying, and be a bit shit for a couple of years and get beat quite a bit, it's a sacrifice we'll have to make in order to hopefully go and get like that, them crazy things that can happen at the other side of it. So it's all part of the process, innit? And it makes winning so much sweeter. I'd argue it was almost worth it on Monday to not go up the year before.
Yeah, I'd agree.
On that Monday, I was not thinking about when we didn't go up in playoff final the year before.
No,
so,
not even a glimmer of a memory.
Nah. But yes, Luke, thank you very much, dude. Everybody go check out Orta No Better and Luke Untied.
Leeds _. Untied.
Yeah, Leeds _Untied on Twitter. Definitely send them to the wrong profile. That'd be a good idea, wouldn't it? So.
Probably for their own safety and their sanity, to be fair.
Yeah. But yeah, cheers for coming on, Luke. You're a legend, man.
Pleasure, mate.
I'll be going live, everybody, in about 10 minutes or so, just for a bit of bullshit talk. And then, nice one. Take it easy, everybody.
Pleasure, mate. Cheers.
Boom.